When you think of Australia, what comes to mind? Golden beaches, the Sydney Opera House, and of course, kangaroos, right? These iconic marsupials hopping across the outback are a symbol of the continent. But what if I told you there's a darker side to this story? A side that involved the planned killing of millions of these animals every single year. Today, we're uncovering the shocking and complex truths behind why Australia culls up to 5 million kangaroos annually. And the reason is far more complicated than you might think. First, let's get the numbers straight. Kangaroos are not endangered. In fact, far from it. There are an estimated 50 million kangaroos across Australia. That's double the human population of the country. This massive number is at the heart of the issue. Before European settlement, kangaroo populations were naturally controlled by predators like the dingo and the Tasmanian tiger, as well as by the limited availability of water and food. Indigenous Australians also hunted kangaroos, but their methods were sustainable and part of a balanced ecosystem. Everything changed when colonists arrived. They cleared vast areas of forest to create pastureland for sheep and cattle. This, ironically, created a paradise for kangaroos. The open grasslands meant more food, and farmers built dams and water troughs for their livestock, providing a year-round water supply that kangaroos had never had before. On top of that, major predators like dingoes were heavily culled to protect livestock, removing the kangaroo's main natural threat. The result, a population explosion? So why is a huge kangaroo population a problem? Well, for farmers, it's a direct threat to their livelihood. A single kangaroo can eat as much grass as a sheep. When you have tens of millions of them competing with livestock for food, especially during Australia's frequent and severe droughts, the economic impact is massive. They graze on crops, damage fences, and deplete precious water resources. For a farmer trying to make a living off the land, a mob of kangaroos can be devastating. This brings us to the government's solution. The cull. The Australian government sets annual quotas for the commercial harvesting of kangaroos. This isn't a random free-for-all. It's a highly regulated industry. Licensed shooters, who must pass a marksmanship test, are permitted to hunt specific species of kangaroo in designated zones. The rules are strict. They must use high-powered rifles and aim for a single shot to the head to ensure a humane and instantaneous death. The goal is to manage the kangaroo population, reduce the agricultural damage, and provide a source of meat and leather. The kangaroo industry argues that this is the most humane and sustainable way to manage the booming population. They say that if the animals weren't culled, millions would face a much slower, more painful death from starvation during the next drought. They see it as a necessary evil, turning a pest problem into a valuable resource. Kangaroo meat is lean, high in protein, and sold both in Australia and overseas. The leather is known for its strength and is used to make high-quality shoes, gloves, and other goods. Proponents argue it's a far more environmentally friendly source of meat than cattle or sheep, which produce significant methane emissions and have a larger carbon footprint. But this is where the story gets incredibly divisive. Animal welfare groups and activists are horrified by the practice. They call it the largest commercial slaughter of land-based wildlife on the planet. They argue that the term harvesting is a clean, corporate word for a brutal reality. Despite their regulations, They claim that the killing is often not humane. The hunts happen at night, in remote areas, making oversight nearly impossible. They present evidence of mishot animals that escape and die slow, painful deaths. And then there's the deeply emotional issue of the joeys. When a female kangaroo or a flyer is shot, what happens to the baby in her pouch? The industry's code of practice dictates that joeys must be killed quickly and humanely, typically by a single heavy blow to the head. This is a point that opponents find particularly barbaric and unacceptable. They estimate that hundreds of thousands of joeys are killed this way each year as collateral damage of the cull. For many people, regardless of the economic or environmental arguments, this is a line that simply cannot be crossed. The debate also extends to the science behind the population counts. Some ecologists and wildlife advocates question the accuracy of the government's aerial surveys. They argue that the numbers might be inflated to justify higher culling quotas, pushing some regional populations to the brink of collapse. They believe that non-lethal methods should be prioritized, such as fertility control or better fencing to protect crops. Though these methods are often expensive and difficult to implement on such a vast scale, even indigenous Australians have mixed feelings. While kangaroo has been a traditional food source for millennia, the modern commercial industry is a world away from their sustainable hunting practices. Some indigenous communities are involved in the commercial industry, seeing it as an economic opportunity. Others are concerned about the spiritual and ecological impact of killing so many of these sacred animals. So where does that leave us? On one hand, you have a massive, overabundant population of an animal that is causing real economic and environmental damage, particularly to farmers. The government and the industry see a regulated cull as a practical, humane, and sustainable solution, even arguing it prevents a worse fate of mass starvation for the animals themselves. On the other hand, you have a passionate and vocal opposition that sees the cull as a cruel, unethical, and poorly regulated slaughter. They point to the suffering of individual animals, the orphan joeys, and question the very morality of profiting from the death of a national icon. This isn't a simple story of good versus evil. It's a deeply complex conflict where ecology, economics, ethics, and emotion all collide. It forces us to ask some difficult questions. Is it ever acceptable to kill wildlife on such a massive scale? How do we balance the needs of farmers with the welfare of animals? And what is our responsibility to an ecosystem that we, humans, have so drastically altered? The kangaroo cull is a dark, uncomfortable, and deeply Australian dilemma. It's a problem with no easy answers, where every potential solution seems to create another problem. It's a stark reminder that our relationship with the natural world is often complicated and messy. So, the next time you see that iconic image of a kangaroo, remember the full story, the one that's playing out every night in the vast Australian outback. What do you think? Is the cull a necessary evil or a nationally tragedy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If you found this dive into a complex topic interesting, please give this video a like and subscribe for more deep dives. Thanks for watching.